Hey, good afternoon. Michael Wynn, Chief Digital Officer of Digital Ops, a division of RB Oppenheim Associates. So glad you guys joined us today on the Digital Appetizer and Virtual Lunch and Learn. I'm so excited to have my good friend Gary Bartlett join me today to talk about how to take advantage of the current real estate conditions in Tallahassee and what are the 3 tips to do that. But before we kind of jump into that, I met with Gary a couple of years ago. He came to me and said, Michael, I'm a small local business owner in Tallahassee, and I just want to make sure that, I'm doing right by my clients and making sure that I get the word out there when it comes to representing them and their property to make sure they get the most exposure to, whether it's their house in a subdivision or whether it's a lot or whatever the real estate property is. How can I make sure I represent them the best? And so we came up with a plan, a 12-month marketing plan, a website, social media. We really put the whole thing together, and he bought into it and has been 100% involved in the process along the way. And I thought, hey Gary, I'd love for you to come on and share with my audience and our group and Tallahassee in general, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong in buying a house today. So I figured we'd talk about that. So let's talk about, what are these tips for success?
Well, thank you for having me on. And we've talked for a long time about real estate, and that's what I've done for 20 years here in Tallahassee. I stepped off the news desk back in 1994 as a full-time news anchor and made the shift into real estate. So it's been a great fit, and know a lot of families through that experience, and so continue to help. But it is a dynamic market right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are taking advantage of low interest rates still, although they're creeping up about 4.5% now for 30-year mortgage loans. But here in Tallahassee, inventory is low, demand is high, and money is fairly cheap. So it does create a pretty dynamic situation, especially for sellers who are wanting to recover some of their losses that they experienced over the previous several years. So
if I'm a buyer, what's really the thing I need to get my ducks in a row? What's the big thing as a buyer?
For sure. So we go through a counseling session with every buyer that I work with. And the number one thing is we have to be pre-qualified. So that means going to a lender, if you don't have a banking relationship with a lender, you need to get dialed in with a lender, and you need to do it very, very early on in the process. Ideally, you have already come to this relationship with some background with a lender already. So the lenders are going to ask you some personal questions that I don't ever ask my clients, but you need to get dialed in with somebody that either I refer, or if you have a banking relationship, get with them. How much money do you make? How much money do you owe? What's your credit score? These are all things that are going to drive your buying power. Based on the information that you provide over the phone, it's a 5-minute phone conversation, they will say you are qualified or pre-qualified to go up and buy a home in X price point. The next step would be to verify that everything you've said is true, and so now that requires you coming in with W-2 forms, maybe your tax records from the last year. They're going to ask for your social security number. They're going to pull credit. So we're getting into a lending sort of conversation that I don't get involved in, but I know those are the puzzle pieces that have to happen. Once they verify that information, then you're pre-approved.
What if I don't do it? What if I skip that stage altogether? What can happen?
Well, you'll lose your binder money. You'll lose the house. That you had your heart.
So I'm going to fall in love with this house and do all this research online and fall in love with the house and then go in, and then it's going to all fall to pieces?
Hopefully you don't even get your realtor. Hopefully your realtor won't let you get to
Get pre-qualified, people.
That's exactly right.
All right. So if I'm a seller, what do I need to know?
Well, so that's a completely different dynamic. There are lots of things to do to get ready. And most people think that their home is in show shape from the very beginning, and it's oftentimes not. So I think it's important here again to have that preliminary conversation. I'm a big believer anymore in even having a pre-listing inspection. Let's do the home inspection. You may not know about the leaky faucet out back, or the electrical switch that doesn't trip properly So let's get these things punched
It's like
off
true
the
love
list.
is blind when it comes to your house, right? You
It
don't
really
realize
is.
it.
Right, that's true. But you've got to do your homework up front. I think it's so important to hit the ground running when the sign does go in the yard, that you're ready, that you're staged properly, that the inspection items have already been punched off the list. So when you come around as a buyer and fall in love with this house that you're already pre-qualified for, it's going to make for a smooth transaction.
How do I know if I got the right price?
Well, you have to listen to the market. That is huge. So listening to the market, you want to do your homework up front. You want to ask a lot of questions. What's happened in your neighborhood? How do you stack up to your neighbors? What
are some trends you're seeing in any of the neighborhoods?
Well, the trend is that you don't have to wait very long to find out if you're on the radar. That's the biggest thing that I can say. And the conversation that I have with families when I'm sitting across at their kitchen table is we're going to know in a matter of days, if not hours, that we're on the radar. That if we've done our work up front, the sign goes out, the word goes out, we're going to get a response very, very quickly.
And I know you've done a lot of work in Summerbrook and Golden Eagle and Ox Bottom. I mean, it seems like you do a lot in there. I mean, you know, what's happening in that? People are really wanting to get in those markets. So
that's true. So the big driving factor that we see out there is the high school. Still, people are driven to Childs High, Hawks Rise Elementary, Deer Lake Middle. Those are blue ribbon schools. Those are a favorite for a lot of buyers in town. But again, the inventory is very low, so you've got to take those steps. You've got to take the steps up front to be ready. So if the house comes on the market, if it comes on Monday, chances are, if it's a good home and priced properly, it's going to be gone by the middle of the week or Friday. So being pre-qualified as a buyer really drives the bus about being able to get through the finish line on the purchase side.
What's the fastest you've seen a house go on the market and get a contract?
Well, occasionally, I can create that kind of dynamic, and I think because of my years in the business and my reach with my clients and my past clients, and that I'm plugged in with people, sometimes you can sell a house before it ever goes on the market. But generally, you know, within the first week, I've been in more bidding war situations.
He's being modest. He's sold one in like 24 hours. Don't let him kid you. He's trying to put on the professional thing. 24 hours. I'm telling you, I manage the website. I've seen them go conditional in 24 hours. I'm telling you, it has happened.
I thought you had a new listing. Well, that was yesterday. It's already gone. So you're right. It keeps you busy.
It does. It does. You know, so we're gonna wrap up with this, and you know, it's been awesome. I love working with Gary. He's so passionate about what he does. You know, he puts in the hours. He takes this job serious. He's full time, every day, every hour. I mean, he's emailing me at 7 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock at night and on Saturday and Sunday. And so
that's true.
He's a 24/7 guy. So if you're looking for a realtor, Gary Bartlett's your guy. But I want to give you one last thing. If there was anything that you could share with these guys, give it to them.
Well, I'm always honored whenever I'm asked to be called in to help with either the purchase or a sale of a home. I always take it as a huge honor. I think it's all about relationships. It's nice to be at this point in my life where, yes, there's a paycheck at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, but I enjoy the process, and I think that I bring some knowledge and some experience to this arena at this point now, where I can give guidance and give good counsel and help people not worry and feel like they're making a misstep, because there are a lot of potholes in a transaction of this size and nature. This is the biggest transaction financially that a lot of people make, so we hear that a lot. So I try to deal with great sensitivity and compassion in a lot of situations, because you're dialed in with people usually at a highly emotional level. There's been a death or a divorce or a birth or a marriage. So all those emotional things come into play, and you really have to be delicate and sensitive in a lot of these situations. So ask a lot of questions. There shouldn't be any question that's off limits. I think it's great. There's only about 2,000 of us who do this, but we're not all created the same. So I think it's important to ask questions, have a comfort level that the person that you're dealing with can get you through the finish line.
Thank you, Gary. It's been great, guys. My name's Michael Wynn. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Digital Ops. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Gary, thanks for coming by.
So long.